Hey, beautiful ones. It is April 2022, and I have had an incredibly rich month of tarot, partly because a number of Kickstarter and pre-order decks came in, although I started the month with a very sincere and earnest no-buy zone. Nonetheless, my mailbox was flooded with new stuff. And I've just been playing and loving to play with my cards. It's been so rich and fun. Let me share some of the new decks that came in this month. So just actually a few days ago, or maybe a week ago, Patrick Valenza's newest addition to his Trionfi della Luna family came in. And I'm not going to go through any of these decks in detail. And this is out of order because I've been playing with it. This is a very wonderful deck. The ways in which he's brought in basically a Waite Smith interpretation of the pips just now fleshes out the deck. I have always been a little bit, I appreciate Patrick Valenza. Deviant Moon is a great tarot deck, but I've always been a little bit lukewarm about his Trionfi della Luna. The majors are wonderful, but the colors, it just never quite sang to me. And I have it in a couple of the paradoxical versions, but they too were problematic. But now with the pips, which basically, I've got all these majors here. Basically the pips bring in, I mean, look at that 5 of coins. I mean, this is a Waite Smith interpretation of the pips. So this is now, and this is the tower from an older tradition, older even than the Maison de Dieu, of the towers depicting lightning or the thunderbolt. Basically, this is now a brilliant hybrid deck. It is a Waite Smith. I love this 5 of Cups. It's a Waite Smith, Mousset, Valenza mashup. And as always, he is really, I'm not going to take these out, but these are the extra cards, look at that come with. So you have a huge number of choices with the death card, with the tower card. There, with my deck, I don't know if this comes with all of the decks or if it's, if there's a difference with some of the decks. But the Witch, this is from, what is this deck from? That, I can't remember. I think that was from one of the paradoxical Della Lunas. But the Witch in both the classic coloring and the paradoxical coloring comes as a little extra kind of bonus card on top of all of the bonus cards that are packaged with this deck. So super fun. Trionfi della Luna, the illustrated pip edition. I also got my Prisma Visions in a tin, and I am loving it. You know, Prisma Visions is a deck that I have owned for a long time and have never played with. And I'm actually going to be getting rid of, I think it was the 4th edition that I have, the glossy edition. I got the Kickstarter version of the matte edition, and I still haven't really played with that. It's been sitting in a box waiting to be uncovered for the right moment. But now that I have the little tin edition of this deck, and I also got the Light Visions, the sepia toned one, I'm actually playing with it. I mean, I've only had it a couple days, but I've done a few readings with it. And I don't know, it's like one of these decks I've somehow been intimidated by. If that, the glossy cardstock on the original didn't help, but anyway, I don't know. This deck, this deserves a very long video of its own. There are videos out there, including Seven's videos on the deck. But the Mantero, so much to say about this deck. This is a magpie deck, and probably a bunch of you know it because this was like the most, and have it because this is like this whole phenomenon on Kickstarter. I can't remember what, like, made $1 million or something. I mean, it was just insane numbers. I mean, she didn't make $1 million, but just, you know, insane numbers of sponsors, of backers. And each card is from a different deck, right? But they're all produced on the same cardstock. And I didn't get all of the extras, but I did get some of the extras. These are extra cards. And this is already a chunky deck. There's like 13 different death cards in here. Or something like that. I think it is 13. Anyway, I haven't even played with this. For some reason, I put it in order. It came with a really amazing, amazing guidebook that looks like a journal, like a hand-bound journal with handwriting and notes. The whole conceit of this deck is that there's this character, the Alley Man, who just collects decks and memorabilia and products that have the word alley in them. So these are alley strikers, long stick matches. I mean, there's all of this. It's deeply playful and also really careful and interesting. And I haven't shuffled or played with this deck yet, but I will. Another deck that I had on pre-order was the Pulp Tarot, and that came in, and I love the images. This is also a very witty, very clever deck. The cardstock, well, I completely hated the cardstock at first because it's flexible. It actually has decent, I think it probably does have a decent core, but it just is not great. And it's funny how much that affects me. I am not cardstock agnostic by any stretch of the means, by any stretch of the imagination. And, you know, it shuffles fine. It's fine. This cardstock is fine. It just, with a cardstock that was more like a Llewellyn or a Make Playing Cards standard smooth even, or superior smooth. I mean, I can understand why Todd Alcott wouldn't have wanted a linen cardstock, that the slight gloss, but you see, it sort of doesn't shuffle that well because the cardstock isn't great. So it's a really smart deck. I'm really picky about cardstock. It could so much be like my favorite deck. One of my favorite decks. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it, but oh man, the cardstock, you can see it chips really, really, really easily. So that's a drag. That's a drag. It's a drag to have cardstock that chips so easily. Yeah, look at that. I think I just did that too, didn't I? So, wow. But great deck. Despite the cardstock, but probably a deck I won't use that much. It's sad, but true. Okay, what else? Other decks that I ordered. I think everything else is either old stuff or new stuff that I bought special. I've already featured this deck in a video about grief, but I'll say something about it again. Now this cardstock is divine, and this deck is deceptively cute because it's actually really thought out and really amazing for readings. It is lighthearted and yet manages to offer depth to it, partly because, well, entirely because of Lorene Music's use of thematic, I get such a kick out of that one, thematic elements that trace through, like, you know, the tower, lightning in the Three of Swords, or the way that a lion appears in both the Nine of Wands and, of course, in the Strength card. An extra lion, not just the Lady's Lion. And, you know, this really clever Four of Cups. And the appearance of these kind of Georgia O'Keeffe cow skulls throughout. I mean, it's just And there's another one, right? Oops, come on. You can focus, come on. Yeah, so Pixis Whisper by Lorene Music. New to me this month, in heavy rotation already. Super wonderful deck. This is her cute neoprene bag that you can get with it. Other new decks, the Keymaster Tarot. Again, I started this month as a no-buy zone, but then I fell apart. Yes. Whoops, just kicked the box over the edge of my table. It's not initially my aesthetic. There's that kind of fantasy art aspect to it. It feels very gamer, sort of very role-playing game kind of imagery. But first of all, it's really fun to shuffle. The cardstock's a lot like Ivy Feng's decks, like the Neo Rider. I don't think it's all plastic. I think it's got a paper core, but it has that kind of light and flexible feel to it. And this repeating throughout, you can see it here, of these gold accents that bring in sacred geometry, you know, in not in the kind of, you know, absolute sense. I think these are just, you know, geometric shapes. And I'm not sure there's a huge intentionality behind the shapes, but they're beautiful. And then you get, in the pips, you get both a playing card-like use of the French elements, spade, hearts, diamonds, and clubs, and a Marseille style. Now, the layout of the playing card elements isn't quite like a playing card. Let me give you an example. So, you know, that's like a playing card, but then here we have the Six of Clubs, and that's not like the Six of Clubs in a playing card. And they also differ suit by suit. So it's not quite like a playing card. If you think about in a playing card, all the sixes, the pips are lined up in the same way, all the sevens. So it's kind of this amalgam of it's like playing card style and then Marseille style. So, you know, this is like the coins, and the Marseille is evoked in those circles, but it doesn't have Marseille coins. And, you know, here we have cups, and again, cups and hearts, right? And the Marseille is evoked, is hinted at, but not quite replicated. The guidebook is really good. And this is the AGM edition, not the Stockholm 17. I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember the name of the company that it came out. Stockholm 17. Yeah, so this is the AGM edition. There's a few differences in the cards, but the guidebook is really good. And the meanings of the pips that are given here mostly track onto Waite-Smith meanings. Like here's the Eight of Cups, temporary, or Eight of, right, the Eight of Cups / Eight of Hearts, temporary darkness, your clarity is clouded, your thoughts seem deep. Despite uncertainty, it is important that you move forward. The sun will shine again. So you have that evocation of, you know, the figure who's moving on, leaving behind the cups of his delusion. Okay, Keymaster Tarot, really great. New to me, but not a new deck, is, and I'm super excited about this, this is Rachel Pollack's Shining Tribe Tarot, and I was able to snag, although it's out of print, I was able to snag for a very reasonable price, like basically for, you know, what you'd expect to pay for, you know, a Llewellyn deck and book set today, under $30, I think, a pristine, unopened edition. So this is her Shining Tribe Tarot, the revised version, what was originally her Shining Woman Tarot. And, you know, this is the kind of, I love this kind of artwork. It's one of the styles, this sort of really kind of primitive, self-taught drawings. I love it. And it's not just that I like the aesthetic. It's Rachel Pollack. The book is amazing. So deep. And so this is, I love this, Ace of Birds. So I cannot wait to dive into this. But it's going to be the kind of tarot deck, I love the backs too, the kind of tarot deck that requires some real attention and real study, because it is so thoughtful. It's freaking Rachel Pollack. Cardstock, Llewellyn cardstock at its best. I love it, love it, love it. I've also recently acquired the latest, the 20th anniversary edition, 2021, came out last year, of the Paterson Tarot. It is, I probably need to do a real video about the differences among the different editions. This has returned, thank the Lord, to her original design with the maroon borders, where the artwork is amazing. I mean, it's the same artwork as in the more common English language edition, in the white box with sort of white gray borders, but the maroon and the yellow, slight yellow line, it just freaking pops. It's beautiful. It's borderless backs. It's a slightly thinner cardstock than the original AGM edition of the maroon box, which I also have in German, because that was the German edition. Once it came out in an English edition, it was in first a two-piece box and then a tuck box, and the cardstock got thinner. So this has thin cardstock, but it's actually brilliant. And despite how meaty and huge these cards are, you can't do it here, I don't think so well because of my setup, but you can side shuffle. Well, I can't really do it. I can do it, but I've got the tripod in the way. You can side shuffle really nicely. It's wonderful cardstock. It's that supple, like Llewellyn cardstock at its best. It's thin, but lovely. Okay, my new Margarita Paterson. Love, love, love a new bag for the occasion. And other deep, deep loves. Oh my gourd. Melissa Weatherspoon. I resisted this deck. Although I love Melissa Weatherspoon. She's a great artist. Her Lonely Dreamer Tarot is one of my all-time favorite tarot decks. But I resisted it because I was like, I don't want a landscape format. But I'm a freaking dog person, and this is a really good dog deck, which most are not. And so finally, I got it. And I fangirl gushed, and Melissa threw in this box, the box edition, and a Lenormand. And I'm super honored to have this incredible deck, which is actually the best dog deck I've ever seen, and a great tarot deck. What makes it such a good dog deck is these are real dogs, right? These are real dogs with real personality, and their personalities, almost without exception, really seem to match the cards. So even when, you know, she does the stuff that people do with animal decks, where you have a little bit of license of, you know, okay, would an animal really, you know, he's leaving behind his bowls. Oh my God. You know, would an animal really hold a wand that way, a stick that way? Would any dog really sit this still? Maybe. If he was a really good boy with a crown on his head. Oh. Would any cat hold a pentacles in her claw like that? Maybe. It's okay. It works. It's wonderful. I love this Five of Wands. It's just lovely, and has One of the most moving death cards I've ever seen. It's actually the, the Ten of Swords. X-ray. It's actually the alternate death card. But yeah, I actually have both death cards in here. I love it. I love it. So this deck, these are real dogs. The guidebook tells us their names and gives us little stories. And it just, I mean, my love for this deck, there's one point in the month where I was just like, so, sorry, I keep going out of focus, don't I? I was so just loving the deck. You know how that happens, where you're just being goofy as all get out, in love with 78 pieces of cardboard. Yeah. The lowrider. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to show you guys. It's just been a crazy month. So, you know, I've also really this month reactivated my love of fine art decks. And so I had ordered, and it finally arrived. I think it was in March still, the Revival Art Tarot. And this month has been insane for a no-buy month. But anyway, the Revival Art Tarot, and then I got the Revival Art Tarot 2nd edition from someone who was selling their version of it. And these decks aren't perfect. The artwork's a little bit, it's just been muted down in a way that I wish it was slightly more contrasty, because the images, there's a kind of brushed quality to the images. In part, that's the cardstock, but not entirely. So it's not perfect. And the cardstock is such a joy to hold, but actually really hard to shuffle. You have to split the deck into two, because it's a chunky deck. But I really love these decks. I really love these decks. And they reignited my joy in working with the Touchstone Tarot, which I have in its, I think it wasn't its first indie edition. It was maybe the second, the Kunadi edition, but it's still in matte. And unlike the recent re-release with US Games, it doesn't have really huge borders. And again, it's in matte. Now, I'm not a fan of the gilding, but I am a fan of this deck. I'm a fan of the whole concept of the portraiture and the way in which you really do find yourself in the company of, 78 people. This 8 of coins is amazing. This guy is the 8 of coins. I mean, it helps that I'm the 16th century. When I was still at the university, the 16th century, that was my period. I was a Shakespearean. So most of these are earlier Tudor, but or even earlier. But yeah. And then where's Anne Boleyn? Anne Boleyn is the Queen of Wands. I mean, come on, perfection. Where are you, Anne? Where are you when I need you? Oh well. She's scrumptious. And yes, I would break with Rome in order to bed that woman. Oh, now I have to show you. I have to find her. Oh. There's Queen. There's Queen Elizabeth. Herself. All right. Well, her mom is in this deck, and she is scrumptious. Okay. The Touchstone Tarot. Love, love, love. It's been great to reconnect with it. And to remember how, when I first got this deck, how transformative it was. Even more so than the Golden Tarot, Kat's other deck. And then reconnecting with the Tarot of Delphi, which I know this is a deck that is completely, deeply coveted and beloved. And the fact that I own a copy is amazing. I was able to get it back in the days of the Eclectic Forum. I was able to purchase it from someone, or I can't remember exactly. There was a trade involved, and then money exchanged hands, and here it is. And I could never afford it at the cost that it's going for now. And this deck is, you know, it's super important, right? Because this was the deck that really kind of launched the interest in fine art decks. And it's a very coherent vision. I mean, J.D. Hildegard Hinkle is really smart, but the cardstock is awful. I'll just say it. The cardstock is awful. And that unfortunately matters to me. I love the deck. I will never give it up. But I just, if this were re-released with a linen cardstock that you could shuffle with smaller borders, you could still have it framed. I know that's really important for her vision. But a gal can dream. A gal can dream of the perfect blending of art, design, and cardstock. The Tarot of Delphi. Totally not in the same league, but a deck that I had, when did this arrive? Sometime late last year. MJ Culinane's for Hexatero, right? With this kind of Swedish fairy tale, right? This sort of imagined world. And I am not, well, maybe I am more of a fairy person. I say I'm not a fairy person, but, you know, I love the Tarot of the She, and I love, although I don't use my Hidden Realms tarot. Yeah, I've been known to love me my fairies. But I think, you know, it's the colors and the shapes and the sense of texture in this deck really grab me. And I am a broken record. The cardstock. This deck, for a large deck, this deck is such a joy to shuffle. It feels so good. It feels so good. And look at that. And it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. I think this is my, I mean, I love the Crow Tarot, but I think this is my favorite MJ Cullinane deck. And yeah, and I hadn't been playing with it, so I rediscovered it this month and have played some with it. The other deck that I rediscovered this month, by the way, I'm saving the best for last, is my Sweet Tarot of the Sweet Twilight, which, first of all, the color palette is amazing. And this deck is super deep. Dan Pelletier calls this a deck that has a slow burn, you know. But, you know, look at that High Priestess with those mice. I mean, it's so weird. This is, the Empress is my favorite card, I think. It's a very, very cool and deep deck, and I have been rediscovering it and trying to really get to the bottom of it in the past few days. So, Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. Last, but absolutely not least, I finally, after, I don't know, 8 months of hoping, searching, begging, praying, I have been able to get at a price that was reasonable the Relative Tarot. It had already been opened, but it was pristine. This deck, in its indie cardstock, with its brown edging, this deck is perfection. This deck is perfection. It's so freaking beautiful. And like, you know, like the Touchstone Tarot in a very different way, this, you are encountering personalities. You are encountering personalities. Some of them, I love this universe card. Some of them are more compelling than others. I'm not the hugest fan of the Seven of Wands. I don't know the historical references. Some of them, I mean, is that Valentino? So I don't know. I can't tell you who most of the figures are, and I know that there are people who can. But I love the images. So, the Relative Tarot, it's now mine. It's Oracle deck. You know, I've played a little bit with it. The keywords are not mostly, they don't mostly speak to me. The images are great, but I haven't, in my pullings of the keywords, I haven't been super moved, but I think I just need to actually play with it more. And it's just so special to have both the Oracle and the Tarot in their original package. So there you go. April, man. April showers, man. Again, really, I did begin this as a restrained no-buy zone month. And I didn't even buy that much, but a lot landed on my doorstep all the same. Does it help that I sold a deck? All right. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, thank you for your practice. Take good care.